Hey everyone, AJ back again for the mighty Gluestick channel, that guy with the weird accent who makes monster videos and occasionally other stuff. Thanks, by the way, for your interest in the other content I have put out in the last few vids, but it's time to get back to the monster list. As promised, the Lung Dragons. Formerly known as the Oriental Dragons, but we don't call them that anymore because, well, it doesn't make much sense. Much like one would not call the Mulhorandi gods the Egyptian gods because there's no Egypt in the Forgotten Realms. So we could call the Lung Dragons the Kara-Tur Dragons, and Kara-Tur is inspired by Rokugan from the Legend of the Five Rings. So it's really a couple of steps removed from actual Asian mythology. They were first mentioned in Gods, Demigods and Heroes, then more fully described in Dragon number 24 in 1979 with the Tianlung or Celestial Dragon, also called the Imperial Dragon, the Shenlung or Spirit Dragon, also the most common of the lungs, the Lilung or the Earth Dragon, the Panlung or the Coiled Dragon, the Langlong or the Sea Dragon, and the Yulung or the Carp Dragon. Later publications also provide us with the Qianglong or the River Dragon and the Tunmilung or the Typhoon Dragon. Lungs vary a lot from the true dragons created by Tiamat and Bahamut, so I imagine they might originally be creations of Io. The main reason they are not spread across the entire world of Faerun is probably due to their intimate involvement with the celestial court of Kara-Tur. They may not be welcome in the lands claimed by the other divine pantheons and would probably need permission from the celestial emperor to travel outside of Kara-Tur, as they have jobs to do. For example, the Qianlung have the duty of creating rain, and they report to the Ministry of Thunder, who in turn report to the celestial emperor. The lungs are not divided into colours. The different types can be any alignment, so you can find lungs that are white, black, yellow, red, green or blue, but all of them would be the same general type. The colour of their hide doesn't matter. It's no indication of their temperament or their powers. Lungs do not sleep. They don't need sleep, though they often relax in their lair and can be found more often than not, slightly more often, in their lair. They can all polymorph into humanoid form at will, aside from certain ones, I'll cover that in a second, and turn invisible at will as per the spell, though they must turn visible again to attack as usual. They all have the psionic powers. They have particularly potent extrasensory perception that gets more powerful with a wider range as the dragon ages. As for the psi powers of these dragons, there is the Mystic class available in Unearthed Arcana for 5th edition, and all the subclasses options are there. Or you can handle it with the equivalent spell-like effects from the player's handbook. I'll put a link to the Mystic PDF in the doobly-doo. Generally speaking, they have the equivalent of some levels in the Mystic character class. How many levels depends on the age of the dragon. It's not an exact science. I would start them off at level 4 and go no higher than level 10, unless it makes sense for your particular campaign. So I'll go through the various types, starting off with the most unusual, the Carp Dragon, or the Yulung. They have the head of a dragon, 2 legs, plus the tail and body of a carp. These creatures are shy, dwell in rivers or in the warm lands or underground, and lack the power of flight, polymorph, or invisibility. They have no breath weapon and can only survive for an hour outside of water, as they need the water to breathe, not air. Most heartfelt wish of all carp dragons is to transform into another kind of dragon, and they usually do eventually, so there's no carp dragons that are older than adult stage. This means it may be possible to bargain with Yulungs in order to make use of their psychic powers and ability to travel rivers and streams to spy for the characters, in exchange for what they think will advance them in their transformative quest. As far as I know, the Yulung are not tasked with any specific job in the celestial bureaucracy of Kara-Tur. Qianglong are the bringers of rain, the guardians of rivers and lakes. Most of them tend towards lawful neutral alignment, swaying towards the good side of it. They rarely appear before any being that is not part of their jurisdictional area. They are charged with not only the rainfall, but the flow of all natural waters in that area. They can speak all human languages, the language of fish, the supernal language of the celestial court, the language of Shenlung, and their own language. Their power of polymorph includes any form they desire, unlike other lungs who transform into humanoids exclusively. So they can polymorph at will, exactly as the spell, as long as they desire. They can exhale dark vapours that condense into clouds. This is not a breath weapon, it's just their power. So the clouds become rain. and they have the ability to lower floodwaters within a mile of themselves and can use spell-like powers such as Bless, Bestow Curse, Remove Curse, Augury, Control Weather, Divination, and Dispel Evil and Good once per round, and they can use the spell of Creation once per day. They can use magic to create a devastating tsunami, but only under direct orders of the Celestial Court, or they will most likely be put to death. Any being that travels alongside them has the power to remove in the water as they would on land and breathe water as long as they want. In Draconic form, they attack with claws and bite, and in humanoid form, they attack with an enormous sword. It counts as +5, it is so large. Medium-sized creatures with a strength of less than 18 need to make an athletics checks just to use the thing. They lair in an underwater palace of ostentatious size and luxury, despite how large the rivers and lakes are. So it could be like an extra dimensional space, maybe? It just seems to always be just right. The mansion is bustling with servants, also in humanoid form. However, they are actually water folk, spirits and fey creatures, and the Qianglong will always be in humanoid form as they prefer to relax in this form. Also, any of the wondrous and expensive items that can be found in the mansion will only remain valuable and useful beyond the water's surface if the dragon gives away the item freely, while stolen items turn into trash when they break the surface otherwise. When not in celestial duties, or on celestial duties, these dragons get involved in the goings-on of people or in their region. One interesting trait is that the daughters of these dragons are invariably stunning beauties in whatever form they have, and they have a real weakness for courageous heroes. So there's lots of frequent marriages arranged, even though the draconic brides will invariably end up leaving the husband for their celestial duties, and the offspring will always be spirit folk. Other Qianglong love the company of scholars, artists, and sages of a virtuous nature, and will invite them to lavish parties on board gorgeous riverboats, conversing and entertaining until the mortal scholar wakes up in the morning alone and bestowed with some gift, usually a great gift of appreciation. Okay, so on to the Shenlong, most common of the Lung dragons. These spirit dragons are aids to the Qianglong, and as such spend a lot of time travelling to the Celestial Court and sometimes to other regions, returning always to their Qianglong lord. Shen are wingless, have 4 feet, 2 horns on the head, and many whiskers. They have characteristic spikes on the end of their long and agile tail, and the dorsal line of their body has characteristic wave-like spike ridge line along all the way up the spine. In combat, they attack with the 2 front claws and a savage bite and stabbing or slashing of the tail spike. Flight, as with most lungs, is via a pearl-like organ inside the head. They have no breath weapon but can throw spells. 3 times a day they can use Control Weather and Ice Storm. They can also use Bless twice a day and Bestow Curse once a day. They live in rivers and streams, breathe air or water, take no damage from lightning or poison, but double damage from fire, and they have an amazing power called Scaly Command, which allows them to summon fish, snakes, drakes, merfolk, anything with scales that lives in the water, and order them around. Also, no scaled creature of the water, aside from other dragons, can willingly attack a dragon who possesses the Scaly Command power. They can't save against it. And the range of this power is half a mile, plus no other dragon can control the creatures that are being controlled by another dragon using the scaling power in this way, while they're under orders, you could say. They also can use the mystical water fire. This is basically as a close aura of flaming water that surrounds the dragon while it is on or under the water, and it usually does a couple of dice damage. The type of dice depends on the age of the dragon. So very young dragons would be 2d4, 2d6, 2d8, etc. It has the unusual property of being temporarily dispelled by an attack with actual flames. So if the dragon is surrounded by water fire and then somebody hits it with a fireball, the water fire will be doused for a set amount of time. I think it's something like 2 to 20 rounds. So, Shen are very fond of arsenic. They will chow down on the stuff and roll it on it like catnip. They also eat bamboo and will hunt down and eat swallows like a delicacy. those birds, swallows. They have a repulsive effect on all sorts of creepy crawlies. Arthropods, arachnids, or other insects will never go closer to them than 6 inches, which could be problematic for a thri-kreen, I imagine. Tianlung are the celestial or imperial dragons. They are the masters of the weather, all the weather that's not rain, basically. Typically yellow in colour, they are wingless. Actually, the only lung with wings is the Lilung or Earth Dragon. Tian hang out in the same areas as silver dragons do in the other areas of Toril. They have a similar appearance to the Shenlung, but they breathe fire up to 6 times a day, a nice blasting cone of draconic jet flame. Plus, they can cast control weather at least twice a day, more so for older dragons. They spend a lot of time soaring about through the sky, interacting with beings of elemental air, and they tend to attract fanatically loyal servants that travel with them. These can be any sort of intelligent flying or air-dominant creature. So if one does kill a Tien, they will most likely have to watch out for these servants hunting them down and killing them in vengeance for their master's demise. You could say that the Tien have a lifestyle similar to an adventurer. So they're similar in temperament. They're wild and fancy, like the courageous and curious seeking of adventure of the silver dragon. Celestial dragons love to eat pearls and opals, and they'll go to some length to acquire them. So bringing them a gift of pearls and opals is sure bet to win their good favour. The Coiled Dragon, or Panlung, is an interesting beast. I really want to use them in my game. They are like the little sibling of the Shenlung. They have no breath weapon, nor do they have a tail spike like the Shen. Instead, they grow long and lean and have magical powers to charm monsters. They fly, live mostly in swamps and marshes, and have the scaly command power, and in combat they can wrap around and constrict a victim, doing as much damage as their bite attack each round. First they get in close to the target, latch on with a bite attack, then whip around the target and start to grapple, inflicting the bite damage plus the constriction damage every round automatically. Until the victim breaks free, they let go, or they're dead. They do have a claw attack, and they can use that attack on the target they're constricting or on an adjacent enemy each round as well, so they're quite vicious. They don't have the spell power of the Shen, but can cast Charm Monster 3 times a day. Plus, they can make use of the Water Fire ability, which is particularly nasty considering they're immune to it, and they can breathe water, and a constricted victim may end up crushed, chewed, drowned, and burnt to death with a side order of savagely clawed. They are like most lung in that they prefer to assume humanoid form, and I like to imagine that a coiled dragon operates a stately riverboat, a gambling house on the delta, taking the form of an elegant matron who charms the guests and provides a safe place away from the city where the vices can be indulged and secrets traded among officials and criminals alike. Security is tight, but she has a famous menagerie of exotic creatures who seem quite happy in their captivity on the large, slow-moving riverboat. While she is demure and slim with an impeccable fashion sense, the matron is known to be more than she seems. She once challenged a powerful warrior to an arm wrestle and snapped his wrist like a twig. She has an unerring sense of the shallow currents and ever-changing safe path through the delta waters, and it's a good source of information on where to buy, sell, or transport exotic goods outside of the usual channels. And yes, she loves to wear fine sequin dresses, and her galley serves the best spicy crab you will ever eat. Lungwang are basically dragon turtles. They're almost exactly the same. They can't fly, are enormous, can use the scaly command power, tend to demand tribute for safe passage on the sea they call home, and are just as likely to flip and tear apart a ship as they are to breathe a cone of boiling steam across it and cook everyone on board. Essentially, dragon turtles are taken directly from Luang. Lilung are the earth dragons. They have wings with feathers, a head much like a manticore, kind of a dragony with human features, and a body like a lion with really powerful claws. They live underground in a lair in caverns of natural splendour, conducting the business of the Underdark folk and all the creatures that dwell down there. They have no breath weapon nor spell powers, and they can't breathe water, but they can cause earthquakes. Yeah, earthquakes. And they are never harmed by the resulting massive cave-in of the caverns they're in. They just dig their way out and carry on. Lilung can be encountered as powerful and very knowledgeable dwarven merchants who travel the Underdark with a large retinue of diverse underground creatures And when they do encounter surface folk, they'll probably already know why the surface dwellers are down in the deep, fossicking about, and may offer some very good advice to keep the adventurers safe in exchange for trades of interesting or rare items, exotic hardwood, and gems from distant lands being particularly to their liking. Last in this breed is the powerful Tun Mi Long, the Typhoon Dragon. Tun Mi Long! Tasked with dispensing ocean storms. As you are no doubt aware, ocean storms are no laughing matter. They can devastate an entire country. So Typhoon Dragons tend toward the evil side of neutral. They don't ask why a storm is required, they just leap to unleashing one as soon as they're allowed. They enjoy it a little too much, actually, and have been known to slam the coast of a warm island or two with a screaming hurricane, even when not asked to by the Celestial Emperor. But to be honest, the Emperor has loathed to go toe-to-toe with one of these dragons. They are simply too valuable an asset and very strong, making it hard to punish them short of killing them. They spend a lot of time in the air, high above the coastal areas or far out to sea, and they have the power to cast a spell called Divine Wind. This is a spell present in the Oriental Adventures sourcebook, but it's not part of 5th edition yet, so I'll give you the skinny on it. It's a 7th level spell. Conjuration and summoning takes a turn to cast, and the usual duration is 1 turn per level of the caster, and the range is 1 mile, but the area effect is a half square mile per level of the caster. There's no saving throw. In the area effect, there is an immediate and sustained blast of hurricane force winds, sufficient to knock a medium humanoid to the ground 70% of the time, then blow them 10 to 40 feet 30% of the time, doing 1d8 points of damage per 10 feet of tumbling travel. Creatures not within shelter, hopefully something very sturdy like stone, will take 1d10 points of damage every turn they are exposed to this kind of force. 75% chance, 75% of all crops in the area will be destroyed. Houses will be blown apart, trees uprooted, dogs and cats living in harmony, mass hysteria. This is the spell cast by a wizard. The Tun Mi Long can sustain the effect for 64 hours and can do this once per week. Plus, the area effect is increased with the age of the dragon, and it travels along with them in the exact center of it, immune to all the damage from air or water-based attacks, and they have no breath weapon. And while they can attack with tooth and claw if required, they will probably just hang back and destroy the entire countryside instead. Because if you can unleash a hurricane twice a week, why would you bother doing anything else? Typically, they lair in remote areas of the sea surrounded by more evil aquatic creatures and are never invited to polite tea parties in the Celestial Court. Alrighty, that's the lung for you. You may notice I stopped calling them lung dragons. That's basically like saying dragon dragons. So Tianlong is translated directly to Celestial Dragon in Mandarin. You may also notice that almost all of the dragons are associated with water, aside from the earth dragon. So they would be ideal encounters in the elemental plane of water, where they're not limited by their divine jurisdiction and can travel freely. Pretty interesting, and it was quite a good read. Very nostalgic going back through Oriental Adventures. I remember playing that back when we were playing AD&D when I was a teenager. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'll catch you again soon.